Hi all, it is with great pleasure to say that TCEC Season 18 Premier Division is underway. So what exciting, instructive, enlightening games await us? Well, here already is a fantastic game in my view. Leela playing white against RofChade 2.3, or RofChade 2.303. So Leela here is a version SV T60 3010, if that means anything. It's one of the latest Leela networks anyway. So in this game, the book given to Leela, it's a 90-minute, by the way, 10-second increments. So I think it was, that's a bit longer than last time. So D4 from Leela. And we have a King's Engine defense, because after C4, G6, Knight C3, Bishop G7, E4, D6, we have a King's Engine defense start position. And in fact, this is not the end of the book just yet. We enter forcibly into the Simish variation. This is actually one of my very favourite early systems against the King's Engine. So basically you put this bishop here, put the queen there, castle queenside, exchange off that bishop later, play h4, h5, and sometimes this, and sometimes this, and sometimes this, open up the h file and checkmate. That's the basic concept for me of the Simish variation, as I used to play it. Black did castle here, but in fact, we're still in book. This move is played, bishop g5. This is the book move given, a6, queen d2, knight bd7, and here knight ge2, and here finally, this is the end of the book, c5. So from the perspective of black, if I'm playing black, I'm quite excited about the e5 square quite often. If white plays d5 to get this e5 square. And also, if I'm playing white, as I mentioned, I'm interested in often g4 and knight g3 and h4 and h5. And I do worry about knight e5 and the c4 pawn. Leela's first move is to retract part of this opening book. So this is the first move out of book, and there's a retraction of that bishop. It does support d4, and it does mean this g-pawn, could potentially be more useful sometimes as well. But the main thing, to support d4 here, it seems. There is a game, a high-level over-the-board game with d5, as in Mitton against Zagalko, and Zagalko tried to get some queenside counterplay. It was a very tense game anyway, that game, very complicated. It ended in a win for white in 38 moves, but that doesn't really say anything about the strength of d5 necessarily. So anyway, bishop e3 was chosen, and we have b6, now h4. So this seems to be totally in the spirit of things. h4, h5, a wild attacking game. Bishop h6, I totally approve. You might think, well, wasn't that a waste of time? Well, black did commit to b6 now, so it's slightly changed circumstances. Rook b8, and now white castles queenside. Bishop b7. Now here is the move which really caught my fascination and imagination. I'm still analysing generally with Stockfish at the moment. Guess what Leela played in this position, which doesn't seem to be on my usual analysis steps. It doesn't seem to be on the radar, this move. So for 200 points, guess what white played here? I find it kind of amusing. So 10 seconds to pause the video here. Okay, the move is e5. It's a positional pawn sacrifice, and I'm wondering, hang on, this is the tip of an iceberg here, because our traditional engines are kind of teaching us, you don't want to lose material, you want to almost assign a numerical value. And I've heard a lot of people say that they get an instinct for like Stockfish analysis in the past, and they have this almost numerical advantage value in their head. I thought at the time when they were saying that, I thought that's a bit wrong. Why do we need to think like those computers? But this method is based on, in a way, win probability, the way neural networks are evolving. It's a different way of thinking. And I'm really wondering if we should embrace that as well as part of our toolkit. Do we really need the concrete evidence? A lot of the time, in positions like this, especially with opposite side castling, do we really need concrete evidence that this is going to work or not? What it does strategically, it fulfills some strategic dreams, really, and issues and concerns. My e5 that I like with the black pieces, it's stomped out, literally stomped out with this pawn sacrifice. Also, potentially, it's giving white a nice e4 for the knight. And it also, technically, it will be double pawn sometimes for black on the e5, so is it really an extra pawn? So we can't really concretely like look a few moves ahead and prove or disprove this, but the patterns there of being easier to play play actually, because when the knight comes to e5, it's harassing c4, and you have to do something awkward about that. And all this awkwardness is removed. I'm just going to close something over there. So it's a very, very interesting positional pawn sacrifice, but how would we, as humans, if we do want to elevate our play or be inspired, do we have to start thinking in terms of win probability here and favourable strategic ideals? Maybe those are our immediate pointers to such win probabilities. So, okay, so interesting move. If king b1, just to demonstrate some of the issues, black could try and get some direct, counterplay on the b file with b5, and it starts to get really kind of messy. Black's in the game just as much, and it should be, even chances here. There's nothing to write home about, really. If g4 again, b5 is going to be a key move for black, and if a knight comes here, actually f3 is a concern. You can't just let it go, because black could end up just munching all these pawns and using e5 with a great position. If d5, again, the combination of b5 and knight e5 at some point is going to be fun for black. There's a bit of fun to be had. Although there is a very, very tactical idea introduced by Stockfish in this particular position. On the other hand, why would you want to tolerate this knight and have to resort to really advanced tactics like this line? So apparently here, g takes, this line might actually be very, very good for black. This is probably the best way to play it. But there are ways for black to go wrong there. So that's knight. So e takes, I mentioned. See, knight eg4 would actually fail to e takes, actually, because white can sort of tactically get through. But why would you want all this hassle to have to calculate all this stuff? And there might anyway be much better defences than that. So this is a really interesting positional pawn sacrifice. It's almost like a new way of thinking, if we could embrace it. In fact, my good friend Natasha Regan did mention it in the Alpha Zero discussion we had with Grandmaster Matthew Sadler. She mentioned about win probability, and in the past people were concerned, sometimes they'd be 3 pawns up and it's very, very difficult to play. So it's a totally different way of thinking here. Lose a pawn, position's much easier to play. It's about win probability. I don't know if it's very difficult to embrace, though, this kind of thinking mindset. It's a whole different mindset. So d5, it's more of a poker mindset, because Jennifer Shahade was apparently saying about, this reminds me of poker, win probabilities, apparently. Saying to Natasha Regan when they were playing poker the night before. So anyway, has the win probability actually gone up here? I would say yes in general, because all of the nasty things that I hate for white or black, or love for white and black, are being reflected in this positional pawn sacrifice. So we have king h7 being played. If black tries to immediately liberate the use of the e5 square, then maybe white just takes and a knight g3. This is going to be quite dangerous. If this happens, got a semi-open G file, it looks as though there's going to be big trouble for black. Yeah, it looks very dangerous. So anyway, king h7, bishop takes, king takes, and now g4. We have b5 being played here. One thing which also justifies this pawn sack maybe is this bishop here. It's blocking the rook. Maybe it's a bit of a waste of time now if black's trying to generate queenside counterplay. The bishop's doing the white king a favour here. So b5, if h takes g4, there is general carnage and destruction with h5. So here, for example, rook takes. This crudeness already worked quite well, as you might expect. Just use the H file to checkmate pretty soon. So yeah, so black has to be careful. B5, knight G3. We have rook H8, queen E3. So black's fully on the defensive. Not only that, now the E5 pawn has to be nannied by this knight. So the black knight's already been kept out of any nicely strategically important squares at the moment. They're kind of passive. Not only that, with this E5 break, there's a looming D6 move. Queen E3 also supports the F3 pawn, just in case bishop F3 is an issue. So there's a few looming issues here for black. H takes G4 is played. If B takes C4, then G5, and we see bishop H3 actually. This position seems quite nice, where white can regain a pawn with interest. Very big position here. And look at black's pawns over here that are a wreck. So HG was played, not B takes C4. We have H5. This is really hack attack chess. This is just minimal counterplay for the knights. Don't give them anything interesting and just rip open to shreds the black king position. E6. As Kasparov says up there, he says, they would have liked my chances in a rematch in 1998 if I were better prepared. It was clear then that computer superiority over humans in chess had always been just a matter of time. You can say that again now. This is really just like an exciting hack attack player playing white, but with substantive evidence that this is the way to play. So D takes, F takes. We have bishop E2. G takes F3 is played. If rook H6, then F takes G4. It doesn't matter about bishop takes. This G5 is looming here. So yeah, and this is just devastating. White's going to have a huge advantage. So G takes there. Bishop takes, queen takes. We have queen E7. If knight takes, then white kind of opens up stuff, and you can expect the black king not to survive too long here. Here there's a very, very nasty pin because white's got that perk of knight E4. That pin's going to be devastating, for example, like this. Just absolutely winning position, that position. Knight up after king takes, knight takes. So we have queen E7. And now queen E3 is played. So this does various things. Let's just look at the game. Rook B E8. Knight C E4. This is a beautiful square for the knight. So materially, I mean, let's count pawns again, just as a reminder. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 2 pawns. Okay, so you could say +2 in a way for black, but win probability, it's better for white. This blockade on E4, black's king safety looks extremely dodgy now. We have knight takes E4, knight takes E4, especially after this. I mean, look at this G file. We have rook H6. Yeah, queen G3. Rook F8. And now H takes G6. And it's dangerous for black to recapture here. Black played rook takes H1. If rook takes G6, then queen H2. And this battery is actually quite invasive. How does black actually stop? Well, the use of H7, for example. If rook G8, rook DF1 cuts the king, so queen H7 is now a mate threat. And if knight F6, knight takes, rook takes. Queen takes is a winning pin. Again, we have a winning kind of pin scenario. That was a mess about move there, by the way. So rook takes and then just pick up a whole rook. So there's devastation and carnage which could result here. So rook takes H1, rook takes H1, rook H8. Rook F1 threatening rook F7 check. We have queen H4. And now queen G2. This introduces some nifty stuff actually, like knight G5 and the queen able to use this whole diagonal here. It's quite a nifty little move, queen G2. King G8, especially with the king there on that back row now. C takes, A takes, knight G5. So you can see this big idea, big move, long move. Queen A8 check could be handy. We have black playing check, king B1, and now black kind of just goes for lots of pointless checks here. Black's position might already be it looks totally busted, really. White has too many aggressive dynamic possibilities. So this next move, rook h4, doesn't really do much for black's king safety. g7. Here, queen a check is not doing too much. For example, here, it's not really such a big deal, this position. Black might be getting some play. But g7 is crushing by comparison. Check. And we have queen d5. Knight f3, shielding the queen, protecting the pawn, hitting the rook, threatening knight takes rook. Rook a4. So black goes for this a2 pawn, threatening checkmate. If the black rook retracts to a defensive position, then queen g6 rather, queen g6 has a huge threat, potentially of knight g5. So if knight f6, queen takes f6, that's clearly hopeless. There's nothing falling off the board there. You know, queen f3, there's no back row issue just yet. If b4, just to put this more sensible looking move, knight g5, you know, threatens queen takes h7, and if here, that's pretty desperate. But what is black actually doing here? Because if it takes, then there's queen e8 mating. For example, like this. So yeah, it looks kind of horrendous. So rook a4. The thing is, after a3, there's a terminal looking move, rook h1, among other attacking possibilities. Queen d3 kind of resigns to that fact of allowing rook h1 and just going for a series of checks now. Black is left trying to see what this does. Rook takes a3 check. Because if knight f6 is played, then rook h8 and then g8 is check, and then this is not going to end well. For example, knight takes and it's forking king and queen. So black has to try this, a string of checks. Now, these checks though here can, it seems, eventually run out, potentially. And it looks as though they are going to run out. And they do run out. So white's essentially a rook up now. And black's compensation is pretty minimal, actually. The pawns are two islands, double pawns. They're going to fall off. In fact, one of them does here. And nice blockade square as well. And, in fact, pardon me, after king d3, the game ended here. If the game continued, if you're not convinced, knight d5, I mean, it's a rook up for two pawns. Knight c4, I mean, yeah, you'd expect the end is nigh here after, for example, like winning the e5 pawn especially. So I'll take you to that game end position. So, yeah, what caught my interest in this game was that e5 pawn tag. I'm wondering if we're seeing the tip of an iceberg there for a new way of strategic thinking. Or at least giving those moves more of a benefit of the doubt, not with the thinking of, oh, I can't see if it totally wins in the next, like, 10 half moves, 20 half moves. But I feel that the longer term prospects give me a nice winning probability. I think we've been so trained by the classical engines that this new way of thinking of win probability, it'd be nice to sort of use that as well. I mean, obviously players do to an extent, and the positional sacrifice is nothing new, but the positional sacrifice in the context of this win probability type thinking, maybe that's going to be the vehicle maybe for its popularity going up in the next few years. People using more and more positional sacrifices inspired by neural network style chess. I mean, when AlphaZero played in its style, it didn't really care about pawns, but it got fantastic positions with so much pressure. It sort of got all the material and more back after. So this win probability is kind of real. It seems this is holistic sort of treatment of chess. We can't really analyze all the possibilities. So probabilities might be a great part of the toolkit, especially in such rich positions like this with opposite side castling. So anyway, I hope you got something from this. And if you want me to challenge you for a game, just register at kingscrusher.tv or bit.ly/chessworld if you prefer. There's also a suave chat forum at kingscrusher.tv/discord if you want to join that. Playlists at bit.ly/Leela chess. or bit.ly/Magnus Carlsen chess. Okay, comments, questions, likes, shares, all appreciated. Thanks so much.